So by far the best way to really uh, make the previous concepts that I talked about in the previous couple videos a lot more concrete is just to get some practice. So I'll do another example here, and as we go along, I'll talk about the topics that and point out where they were in the previous videos. So we will do. I'm in Visual Studio, and I'm going to do a new project. And then I'll just start off with an empty project. The name doesn't really matter a whole lot. Visual C++, General, Empty Project. Okay. We'll do our typical, we'll add a main, and then we'll add one class. Add a new item, and that new item is going to be our main.cpp. And this could take a little bit. Last time it took, I think, a minute. You might have to fast forward this video. I apologize. Didn't take that long this time. Okay. Okay, we've got a main.cpp, so we'll do our typical, and let me make this bigger here, so we'll do an include of IOM stream. Okay, that's just our boilerplate code. That's nothing too crazy. Okay, let's add a header file, and let's just do another typical example. I don't want to get too crazy. I thought about maybe doing something like a database connection, but let's just do another one. Let's do some sort of animal. Let's do a dog class. Okay, so we start typing in our class. I think these are the same size. Yep, okay. So let's, our state, our dog has a state, a default state, so let's put all the variables that kind of define that state. So a dog has, he's got a fur color, so we'll just, and let's do this. Let's do our, don't worry about what this is a whole lot. Let's include string. We'll probably use string, and you may use IOStream, so let's just include it. Okay, so we've got a dog. Dog has a name, so let's just say string name, and then by default it's empty. And then he has a color, and then let's say what's a common color for a dog? Let's say I like black labs, so we'll say by default the color is black. We'll have a float for fur length, and by default we'll say it's, I don't know, 3 centimeters long. This is all kind of just more for the example. Okay, what other properties might a dog have? It could have a weight. So let's say a float has a weight, and say a 50-pound dog. And then we'll say that he can, whether he's currently barking or not barking, so we'll say his volume. And by default, he's quiet. And then let's do a Boolean. We'll say is asleep. And by default, we're going to say false. It's actually lowercase, sorry. Okay. So let's include that and make sure I haven't made any mistakes so far. Yep, and okay, so I want to compiled, so we're good. Okay, so now this holds the current. So this, excuse me, this is the default state for a dog. And so when we create a dog instance, this is all our default state. So now let's give it some behavior. Let's give it some functions. And so let's one of the things we can do is we can put the dog to sleep. So let's say we'll make a function called void put dog, or let's say go to sleep. It's a better name. Okay. And so what happens when we go to sleep, we'll say, is asleep equals true. So that it's kind of following the previous example. So we'll say a dog, and then we'll just say my dog. That's a reasonable name. And then we'll say my dog dot. Did I not do something correctly here? Should have started to autocomplete. So we'll say my dog dot. We got to make these public. I'm sorry. Public. Now we should be able to go to sleep. And then we'll just believe that the dog went to sleep. We don't really need a cout. Okay, so that worked. We have a dog, and then we put the dog to sleep. So originally the dog has some certain state. He's awake. Is asleep is false. And then we change the state through behavior. So we could put the dog to sleep. That's behavior. The object is completely capable of taking care of all that itself. So let's talk about encapsulation a little bit. So one of the things, when a dog is asleep, it's going to be silent. So say we wanted to go back and change this because we've used encapsulation. We say when the dog is asleep, we want to say is asleep is true, and also that the volume. So if he was previously barking, he's going to be silent in his sleep. He's just going to be, I mean, he could snore or whatever. We'll ignore those corner cases for now, but we're going to say that also the volume is 0.0. Well, one of the nice things is with encapsulation is we put him to sleep. We've given the go to sleep function new features, but we don't have to change any of our other code. We've changed the internals because the external, that yellow arrow, is still just go to sleep. So that's hopefully that's a little more concrete about when we talk about encapsulation, but it's a good thing to understand, especially if anybody goes on to be a professional programmer. You'll use encapsulation a lot, and really if you think about it, regular functions kind of have the property of encapsulation as well, but typically when you're talking about encapsulation, I think the term was really coined when people started to use object-oriented programming and give a lot of these things much better definitions. So we can run this again, and it'll run perfectly without having to change this right here. We can just leave it go to sleep. Well, what happens if we break our encapsulation? We say now that instead of just go to sleep, it takes in some parameter now. So we say float, and then how long we want it to sleep. So sleep length. Well, if we were to try to run this now, we've broken our encapsulation. So sometimes they talk about this being as a contract, and you're saying our contract is that we're not going to return anything, and that we're not going to take any parameters in. We've broken this contract. Our encapsulation is no longer valid. So if we try to run it, it's going to be a compiler error, and then no, we don't want to run. So hopefully that makes a little more sense now that we did a little bit more programming and actually saw some code that put in place these terms and definitions that we've talked about in the previous videos.